Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Find Your Edge. My name is Jordan Nagoli, and thank you so much for being here today. Before we jump into today's guest, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone around the world that has watched these episodes. We've been posting about once a month right now. We've not been able to post weekly like I had initially planned to do. That's mainly just because of my schedule and the guest schedule, and we want to make sure that we maintain a high quality of content every time we come out with a new episode for you guys. We've had people all over the world write in, send messages in, just saying how much they enjoy the episodes. I cannot thank you guys enough. It's motivating for me. It's inspiring for me and the team. We put a lot of hard work, time, and energy into these episodes. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. We're not slowing down. We're not stopping. There are many, many more episodes to come. With that being said, today we have Mr. Dennis Smith on the show today. I've known Dennis for about 15 years, and Dennis is the co-founder and creator of Party on the Moon and Dennis Smith Entertainment. They are the most sought after events cover band on the planet, and they have performed 85 to 100 shows per year. And just to name some people that they have performed for: President Barack Obama, President Donald Trump, Ted Turner's 75th birthday, the Kentucky Derby, the Indy 500. They've also played alongside Diana Ross, Train, Jennifer Lopez, Maroon 5, Carrie Underwood, Rod Stewart, Woody Allen, Sylvester Stallone, the Clintons, and Jesse Jackson. They're an incredible, incredible band. And then outside of the amazing music that Dennis creates, he is an author, which we're going to talk about. I've got his book right here. Dennis is also a second-degree black belt in Taito Karate. Surprise, surprise. Anybody that's a listener, you know I have a lot of relationships in the karate community. And outside of that, Dennis loves sharing his business and creative knowledge, which we are going to dive into today. But more than that, Dennis is just all around an amazing human being, a man that I respect and admire and appreciate. Dennis, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being here. So, a little bit of backstory for the listeners of how you and I know one another. For everybody listening, when I was 13 years old, I started Taito Karate. I was too young to be in the kids class, but I wasn't a high enough belt to be in the juniors class. And so I was in the adults class as a white belt, and Dennis was in that class. I think you were around a high purple belt, maybe purple gold at that time.
Probably so, yeah.
Yeah. And so a few years after that, you were testing for your black belt, but I was in the adults class as a kid for 2 years and developed a great relationship with you along with a few other people. And we've maintained that friendship over the last 13, 15 years. You've been a great role model for me. You've been someone that has motivated me and pushed me and just had my back while I'm growing and running my business and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. So thank you. I really appreciate that. You reached out to me and you said, I'd love to come on the show and kind of share your story. So before we dive into kind of your backstory, how do you describe to people what Party on the Moon is and what you do?
You know, I'm obviously a musician and have been playing in a band for a long time. And in my neighborhood, as a matter of fact, we just had a Halloween get-together for the neighborhood. And people in the neighborhood have heard that I'm in a band. Every now and then they'll see the tour bus come through the neighborhood, and you know, everybody knows somebody in a band. For the most part, everybody knows a musician. And I had one of my neighbors come up to me at the party and say, "Well, you know, I hear you're a musician. You have a band. What kind of gigs do you do?" And my response was, "We do the Academy Awards of people's lives." And by that I mean we do their weddings, inaugural balls, birthday parties, fundraisers, anniversaries, and we really take that work really seriously. Mm-hmm. And when I started Party on the Moon, now almost 20 years ago, I was in the record industry. And we had, you know, trying to get a record deal and writing original material and going through the things that struggling artists do. And I'd started a family at the time, and I saw that it was going to be very tough given technology that people could get music for free, that I was going to be able to be successful. So I decided that I was going to put together the best event band in the world. And there were several things that I did to do that were unique at the time. One of the first things I did was we decided that we were going to do a nonstop 3-hour show. And by nonstop 3-hour show, I mean, I really wanted the show to be very similar to if you were in a New York or a LA discotheque, where the music is seamless and the DJ didn't play the whole song, and there was real art between how the songs were put together. And now we do over 120 songs in the show.
Is it that
There's
many?
not a breath between the songs. And over 25 costume changes during the show. Our costume designer worked with Lady Gaga and Madonna on their tours. Our choreographer worked with Beyonce as her lead dancer. So I really wanted to bring a national caliber entertainment experience to weddings. And at that time, that was a new lane in the music business. And at that time too, you know, if you were going to be in a wedding band, it was almost like you were selling out or you were being put out to pasture as a musician. But what I did was took that same passion that I had for original music and brought that to the cover band. And then the other thing I did too was I decided to hire national caliber musicians. So there are people in my band that have worked with Prince and the Isley Brothers and, you know, some of the top stars in the world. They've got gold records, and that was also new. And people in the industry said it was a bad idea to have a 13-piece band, because the wedding special event market wasn't going to support that. But my feeling about it was if the value was there and I could show the value, then it wouldn't be about cost, it would be about value. Now, not everyone may be able to afford that, but it was a secondary question. So, and the other thing I think that's unique about Party on the Moon is we've got 7 hours of music. And every Tuesday we have band rehearsal. And every Tuesday, our goal as a band is to make the show 1 minute better. Just 1 minute. And we're so dialed into our show that we may take 2 bars out of a song, or we may add 2 bars of a song, or we may change this or change that. So I'm constantly looking for ways to improve it and keep it fresh.
Yeah. For people listening, it's what he's describing. I've seen you guys perform twice, once at a wedding and then once at the Taito Karate Summer Camp. I could not keep up with you guys on stage. And I the first time I didn't know that it was 3 hours nonstop. I was like, okay, when are they going to take a break? When are they going to take a break? And you never took a break. The show only got better. It got more intense. And you, to be frank, we're the life of the party. I mean, you guys manage and run the energy of the party, and it was unbelievable. So anybody that gets a chance to be a part of your show is very lucky. What I'm curious about, I want to dive deep into the story of Party on the Moon, but I'm curious about Dennis, the person, before all that happened. Could you tell me where were you born and where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lilburn, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta. I was raised by my grandparents. And when I was 11 years old, I was riding a bike in my neighborhood when people used to ride bikes in the neighborhood. And I heard the sound of a live band. I'll never forget it. And I was drawn to that house like a moth to a flame. And so I ride my bike, I go up to the house where I hear the music, knock on the door, and this teenager who was maybe 16 or 17 comes to the door, and I'm 11 now. And I said, I heard the music, can I come in? He said, yeah. So I go in. They've got 2 guitars, a bass player, a drummer, and a couple of the guys that are instrumentalists are singing. And it absolutely just blew me away. I just could not believe what I was hearing. And they were playing Beatles songs and Kinks songs, and And it just knocked me out. And at the end of the rehearsal, they were talking about how they were going to pack up their stuff and play the high school dance. And that they were going to get like $200 or something. And it just floored me. I went, they get to do this and they're going to get paid. I want some of this. But when I look back on it, I think the thing, and I was not playing music at the time.
Okay.
But I think the thing that I was attracted to was the collaborative process that I watched in front of me, because it was like I had never seen that in real time, where guys were trying this and they were trying that, and then they were rehearsing this and they were trying to make it better. And that collaborative process really appealed to me, and is still the reason, and it's still, of all of the things that I do, the most appealing part of what I do is that collaborative process, whether it's with a band or a cast of a play or making a video or writing songs. It's that create the creative process.
Mm-hmm. I find that really interesting. That's one of the biggest things that sticks out to you. Is it because you're inspired by other people? You gather energy from them. You like working together. What do you think?
I think I don't know if inspired really is the word. I think what I saw was, even if you look back through, Christianity and even Zen stuff, Christ said, where two or more are gathered, that you can move mountains. Mm. So there's Lennon and McCartney, and there's Keith Richards and Mick Jagger, and there's, and I think the thing that was so inspiring to me, if you will, was the result, right? Because we can come together and build cities, or make films, or make videos, or podcast, or find cures for diseases, and the creative process, the collaborative creative process, is the most powerful process that we have.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. And I think alone we can go a little bit, together there is no limit to how far we can go. So you discovered music at 11 years old, and love at first sight and sound is what it's what it seems like. From there, was it an obsession immediately? And I know your first guitar, I think, had 2 strings.
Yep, I traded a guy. I can't remember what I did, but I traded a guy in the neighborhood for a guitar that had 2 strings, and I was all about it. I have no idea. I mean, obviously, I didn't know how to tune it. I didn't know anything about it. But just the idea of making sounds, and also, I'm not sure today with technology if I would have had the there wasn't that much to do. You rode your bike, you played, but basketball or whatever you did. But I didn't have all the distractions today that kids do. So, learning how to play the guitar was something for me to do, and I immediately started a band with a drummer. And I mean, I look back on it, how silly it was. Here I'm practicing with a drummer, and I've got an acoustic guitar with 2 strings. I mean, like, what kind of difference am I making? I mean, it's like, really, dude?
But you didn't know any better.
Well, the thing that I liked was that the camaraderie of it.
Yeah.
And I still like that. I mean, we get on the tour bus, and it's the camaraderie. We're like, I tell the band we're an army. I've used this analogy with a band. I said, we're an army. Mm-hmm. And our goal is to kill the audience and make them fall in love with a band.
Yeah.
Which, and if you think about it, that's what audiences want to do. Mm-hmm. I would never call you and say, Jordan, let's go to the club down the street. Maybe the band will suck. We want to like the band. So we're an army, and our goal is to knock the audience out. And our instruments are our weapons, and our costumes are our armor. and our set list is our strategy, and our sound and lights is our artillery, and our tour bus is our starship. And that's what we do. That's how we roll. And just the camaraderie of that is really fun. Never gets old.
That's why you reference, I think this was in the documentary, you tell everybody battle stations.
Yeah.
That's why that makes a lot more sense now. One thing that I thought was interesting that I read in your book, kind of about your childhood, and I was just curious about this. You wrote that your grandmother worked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week for 26 years. And I know that your parents didn't raise you, but you clearly had a great example from your grandmother. Do you think watching her do that influenced the work ethic you have today? Because you guys work so hard, and I've seen what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize at the time. When I look back on it, I mean, I'm a very lazy individual compared to that, which is why I'm always looking for easier ways to do things. I don't consider myself a hard worker, but she was, she just was can do. She did it all, and how she did. Was away that much, and she was a seamstress. And when I was growing up, she would make my own clothes, which I didn't think was that hip at the time. Now I would love to have somebody do custom clothes. So it's looking back on it, but I appreciate you saying that. But I don't really feel like I worked that hard.
I hear that. I understand that. You remain humble, and it makes sense because I think when you compare yourself to other people, but from the outside looking in and just watching the documentary, reading the book, seeing what you had to do, you have had to work hard. I think you work smarter too, because you were saying you try to do the easy way, but I think working smarter too. One thing that I also read at the beginning of the book, and you wrote this: unpredictability is a trait, for better or worse, that I still possess today. Can you expound more upon that? Because, you tell me.
Yeah. What was it I said? Unpredictability? Say that again. That sounds like a very smart thing to say.
Unpredictability is a trait, for better or worse, that I still possess today. And the reason I want you to expound upon that is, in our personal conversations over the years, you've mentioned this to me quite a bit. You are flexible. You have ideas on the spot. You kind of change with the wind ideas and what you're going to do. And I just, that really stuck out to me reading the book again this time.
Well, I mean, the fact is that, in reality, current reality changes all the time. Mm-hmm. It changes in our life. It certainly changes in the entertainment. And I get to experience that in real time in events, because events rarely go like you think they're going to go. I mean, it's so you've got to remain flexible, and you've got to remain open. And the thing, I guess one of the things that comes to mind is, reality is an acquired taste. And we can either fight it, or we can go with it. But reality is what it is.
Yeah.
For better or worse. Mm-hmm. And reality is our friend. We may not like what it has to say, but it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's real. Maybe that's why it's called reality.
That makes sense. You have to deal with what's happening in front of you and roll with the punches. So one thing that I'd like for you to bridge the gap for me on is, you discover music, you start playing in bands, graduate from high school. Did you go to college? Did you do a little bit of college? Shine the light.
I'll tell you, I grew up, my grandmother didn't do this. My grandmother was very much, you can do whatever you want to do if you work hard enough. That was her attitude.
Yeah.
But a lot of the input that I was getting was, when are you going to get a real job? and the music business is very dicey, and this is not going to last. So you should really get something to, quote, fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in and out of college probably 4 or 5 times. And I went more out of thinking that it was something that I should be doing as opposed to something that I really wanted to do. So I was terrible at it and hated it.
Mm-hmm.
Also did not like school, did not do well in school, did not fit in at school. So, me being an artist was really an easy, I don't want to say choice, but it kind of was. So I did not, I think there's a difference in learning and, I just wasn't doing a lot of learning in college. There wasn't, I was not able to take it and apply it. But I think a lot of it was I was manipulating myself to go because I felt like I should go because people were telling me
Mm-hmm.
that I should go. And doing it for my best interest. They thought they were really doing me a favor.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can tell people they should do this or should do that because we're looking out for them. So I certainly don't have any ill will toward my aunts and uncles for saying you need to get a real job.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because I was just reflecting on this recently. I just turned 28. And I remember 10 years ago when everybody was telling me I should go to college. And I caught a lot of flack from people that I love in my life. And I remember at that time, it made me angry towards them. Why don't you believe in me? Why don't you have faith? Why don't you support me? Now, 28 years old, married, business and bills to pay, I understand they were just looking out for me because that's all they knew. And what I find interesting is that was just based off of their experience. Whereas for someone like yourself, and we're going to get into it, you carved your own lane. You built a path there. Nothing like Party in the Moon existed. You couldn't say, yeah, you see that band, you see this, what I'm going to do. That's what I want to build. So I find that really interesting to people. I actually didn't even plan on asking this. What would you say now to someone probably in a similar position in that age where they're like, I don't know what I should do, how should I explore? What kind of advice would you give to, I guess, a younger version of yourself?
Well, I will tell you that I had a conversation with my oldest son just recently, and the conversation was all around. He felt like that he should be doing more than he was doing.
Yeah. And how old is he?
23.
Okay.
I should be farther along. My friends are doing this, and
Mm-hmm.
I should be doing that. And my response to him was, well, why do you have to do anything? And my response to anyone, because I do consulting. Part of what I do is to consulting. Do structural consulting. The majority of my clients are artists, a few business people. And let me just say a little bit about what I do is in consulting, what I try to do with my clients is to show them the difference in reality and concepts. Reality is what's real, and concepts are what they think that might be real. Mm-hmm. And we get to test those. And one of the things that I think it's important for us to test is, do we have to really do anything? Does Jordan have to do anything? What do you have to do? And what does my son have to do? Does he have to go to college? No, he doesn't. Mm. Does he have to make something of himself? Well, who said? Mm-hmm. Who says we have to go to college? Who says we have to? To me, it's, I would just say, and what I told my son is, if something occurs to you, my philosophy is, when in doubt, create. When in doubt, create. You're thinking about getting your real estate license, get it. When I joined Taito, because my kids went, and I sat on the sidelines and watched them, and I thought that I would try that. And I just tried it. And I never had any idea that I would become a black belt so my advice to my younger self would be to give it a whirl and see how it fits. And I think, and one of the things that is so popular now in culture, and I think this ties in, you can redirect me, but I think what's so popular in our culture now is this finding your passion and finding your purpose. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I don't even know what that means. Or find yourself. Because, I mean, what do you do on days where you're not passionate? And what do you do on days where you're not positive?
Yeah.
Where we can decide that we want to do something, and it could be to make a play, or it could be to have an organized closet, or it could be to, learn how to paint. And you can show up and do those things without having to be passionate about it or having to have a positive mental attitude about it.
I think that's also discipline too. Having the discipline to do something is, because you're right. And you mentioned that in the book too. Before the interview started, I said to you, rereading the book, one of the things that stuck out to me the most was, if you're not feeling great about yourself, if you don't feel creative, if you're down, get up and still do everything anyways.
Well, in the creative process, there's in the creative process, you've got current reality, and then you have your goal.
Yeah.
In relationship to current reality. So you want to be, you weigh 200 pounds and you want to weigh 150 pounds. Well, you've got current reality, how much you weigh, and you've got how much you want to weigh. And then it's simple as you make secondary choices to go to where you want to go. So that might be exercise or go on a diet, or, there's logical steps to take toward your goals that have nothing to do with, I guess you have to have the discipline to go do that. But if you want it, then it's easy, it's kind of easy to do that. Let me give you an example of this, because you and I are both not only into Taito for the physical part, but to me, it's the philosophical part of Taito that has kept me in it for all these years.
Yeah. And
I go to Taito a couple of months ago, and Master Sensei, who's now in his 70s, is sitting around in a circle with white belts. He's got a bunch of white belts sitting around him, and there are kids and adults, and I can just remember being in that same circle with Sensei. And you know how Sensei is.
Oh, yeah.
When Sensei speaks, you listen.
Yes.
And the black belts are waiting on the side, and Sensei says, you see those black belts over there? And the white belts look over, and how many of you would like a black belt like that from me? Raise their hand. Would you like to know how to get a black belt like that? Raise their hand. Since, they all kind of leaned in, and Sensei said, one class at a time. That's it. People come to me, I wish I could play guitar. Great. Get a guitar.
Yeah.
Go to YouTube. You can learn anything. When I started playing guitar, there was no YouTube. It was move the needle back on the record, And I had, people say, people think that I'm so talented. And to me, I'm not that talented. I have 30% talent and 70% skill. So I really developed my skill over time, as opposed to, I have friends of mine, guitar players, friends of mine, that at 15 were playing like Jimmy Page. They had a ton of a ton of talent. And that's not uncommon that you see with artists, where they'll have a X amount of talent, but that talent, without developing that skill, you can't turn that into something that's actually usable.
So you separate talent and skill. I've never thought about them differently. And you're right. People can be born with talents, but anyone can develop a skill.
Well, not everyone can develop a skill. I mean, you need a certain amount of talent, but I would rather have a smaller amount of talent and develop that skill than talent and not have any skill.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that have skill, but they haven't developed their talent, or they have the talent, but they haven't developed that skill. That's where practice comes in.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, going back to the original question that I had asked, your answer was, when in doubt, create. And
Yes.
I think that is so powerful and something I'm going to take to heart because we all have doubts. Jumping back to your story, in and out of college a few times, you leave college for the last time. Okay. What's happening there? Can you explain to me the gap between you leave college, you're playing bands, you're in bars, you're making money doing music, in the gap between that and starting Party in the Moon? What were you doing then?
Yeah, I was doing, one of the things that artists have had a challenge with all through history has been, how are you going to make a living while you're an artist? So when I was a teenager and in my 20s, I played in a band, played in bars, taught guitar, had a sound system that I rented, installed lightings in clubs, and just kind of did everything that I needed to do to make ends meet. I bought a karaoke machine and went to clubs and, let people come up and sing. But it was a real, and then, back in those days, there were more clubs. So there was more opportunities to play than there are now. There's not a lot of clubs now to play. So it was a matter of, and then I had, odd jobs that I would do. But for the most part, I've been fortunate enough to be able to stay in the arts in some fashion. But I did a lot of guitar teaching.
So jobs across the board. And then did you get married before you started Party in the Moon or after?
Yes, I got married before I started Party on the Moon. That was toward the end of the rock band era. And then my wife was an attorney, and she was able to, she was the breadwinner, when I was trying to figure this whole record thing out. And, the record business is such a crazy, it was such a crazy business in the fact that, you could sign a publishing deal or a record deal and your record may never come out. Or you could sign a contract with a record company and the guy that signed you got fired or left and you were left in the lurch. And one of my things that I wanted to do and when I started Party on the Moon was control my own destiny. I was going to go down in flames, but I was going to be the pilot. And another thing that I did too, which I think is key to my life as an artist, is when I put Party on the Moon together, I asked myself, given all the negative response that I had gotten from people on how it would not work, I asked myself, if Party on the Moon was not going to be successful, would I still want to do it? If I wasn't going to make any money on it, would I still want to do it? And the answer was yes, because I thought it'd be cool to do. When I started taking Taito, right, knowing the commitment in Taito that it takes, especially in our Taito, because you don't sign a contract that says in X amount of years or X amount of money, you may become a black belt. No way.
No.
And I asked myself, given how hard that was and the discipline that it took to go, would I still want to go to Taito for years if I never got a black belt? The answer was yes.
Yeah.
When we put this play together that we're getting ready to stage, I asked myself, if it wasn't going to be successful, would I still want to do it? And the answer is yes. So my value base in my life, and I feel very fortunate to be in this place, to say, I'm able to do a lot of things that I want to do and not have it be dependent upon whether or not it's successful. just like writing the book
Yeah.
or making a movie. Would I still do that if it wasn't going to be a bestseller? And it goes back to the when you're in doubt, create.
Yeah. Keep moving forward. Keep taking action. I love that. One quick question before we dive in all about Party in the Moon. In your book, you said that you jokingly asked a woman to marry you in the middle of the show, and that is now your wife. I got to hear this story, Dennis.
So I had two goals when I was growing up. I was never going to get married or have kids. Those were my two things. I was going to be a rock and roller, never going to get married, never going to have kids. We're playing down at a sports pizza bar for the World Series, for the national playoffs of the Phillies and, the Pirates and the Braves. This would have been, 95? I can't remember the year. And so we're playing. And I walk out into the audience with a microphone and a follow spot on me, and I see this girl at a table, and I walk over to her with a full packed house because they were there to see the Braves, not us. Let me just say. And asked her if she would marry me. And her eyes got really big. And she said yes. And everybody in the club stood up and just went crazy. And I didn't even know the girl. I'd never seen the girl before.
That's the first word you spoke to her, right?
Yeah, it was a joke. And my date was not happy.
You had...
Yeah, it was. My date was not happy. And so she gets up with her friends, and we took a break. That's when we took breaks. And so I didn't meet her. And she went home and called her mother and said that she'd seen the man that she was going to marry.
What?
And her mom said, "Great, who is he?" She said, "Well, I haven't exactly met him yet." And then a couple of weeks later, the band played, and she came back, and we met, and I learned a very valuable lesson from that. Don't say anything over a microphone that you don't mean. And God has a sense of humor, and He doesn't mind using it.
Wow.
And now we've got 3 boys, and that was getting married and having kids is 2 of the best things that ever happened to me. So
yeah, the 2 things you swore you'd never do.
Asking people to marry you that you don't know. I'm just saying. I'm not.
I think that's solid advice, Dennis. You've had already a lot of great one-liners today, but this is strong.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing, because when I read that, it's like, I know there's more to this story. So
It's a pretty short story. Yeah.
but life-changing, to say the least. New trajectory for life. So, okay. Party in the Moon. The concept for the band, 13-piece, 3 hours nonstop cover band of top songs in the world. People were critical. They were negative. They said it was crazy. It wasn't going to work. You're going to lose money. People aren't going to want to do this. Let me think how I want to ask this. What were the first steps that you took to start the band? You had a concept and you had to start making it into reality. How did you do it?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did was, I put the musicians together, and then we went into rehearsal. And another key to the creative process is to act as if success is certain.
In manifestation?
It's a very subtle thing. But if you wanted to become a painter, then act as if success was going to be certain and go get lessons or go buy some paints.
Yeah.
Or if you were going to be a black belt, show up for class.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of simple, you would think. But so I put the band together. We started rehearsal, and there were people in the band that were a little skeptical about it because people were telling, we didn't know. We were just really just kind of flying. And probably the first 2 years of the band, we were upside down. So it was costing me more to run the band because I had to pay people.
Yeah. And how were you doing that? So was there credit card debt? Was there loans?
Maxed out all of my credit cards.
Oh my.
To make a video, and the video was very expensive. We did the first high def video, band video, 20 years ago.
Like a promo video to send out to people?
Yep.
Okay.
Promo. So you're in the video business.
Yeah.
So imagine when the first high def cameras came
20
out,
years ago,
how much they were to rent.
I mean, production's probably tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So we put it all together, and but the big thing was, for me, I was able to work with Bose, the Bose Corporation, for a while. I was their artist rep. And when they released some musical speakers for musicians several years ago. And if you go into Bose, they have a slogan all through Bose that says, "The demo makes the sale." Mm. And if you're familiar with Bose, I don't know if you've ever seen one of their demos, but they will actually put a black curtain up and play their speaker, and then they'll pull the speaker back, and you get this big sound on these small speakers.
Wow.
So I took that to heart and knew that the success or failure of the band was going to be in how good the demo was. And the demo is every time we play. And it still is.
Yeah. How did you guys land, I guess, the first event, wedding? What was that for the band?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of the tipping points that we had. And it was for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. This was 15 years ago, I guess. We had an offer to go to Mar-a-Lago and play for Donald Trump, New Year's Eve. And I was really concerned about that show. Rod Stewart was going to be there, Woody Allen, so, I mean, the who's who. We'd never done a show that high of a profile before. And, Mar-a-Lago, New Year's Eve at Mar-a-Lago, I mean, they could have had anybody, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
They could have had anybody. But we were smart that our videos and our promotional material was probably the best in the country at the time. So we got the gig. And so not only did we go in and do well, and here's the thing, too. It goes back to what we were talking about a little earlier about being positive. I was scared to death going on that gig.
No.
Because I didn't know if we were going to be able to do it or not.
Do what? Play at the level they wanted?
I did not know if we had the goods to be in that environment of those high level clients.
I see.
And not only did we do well, but it was the best New Year's Eve that they had ever had. Wow. At that time. And we went on to play 9 consecutive years in a row at Mar-a-Lago for New Year's Eve. And that really was one of the tipping points for the band that allowed us to really take off. And then after that, we did Eli Manning saw us at a club in Memphis, Tennessee. And he came over to me and got a card, said, "Can I have your business card?" I said, "Yeah." He walked off the left, and the band members came over and said, "That was Eli Manning." No, I didn't know it was Eli Manning. But sure enough, about 2 years go by, and we get a call from Eli Manning's camp, and he flew us to Cabo St. Lucius for his wedding the year that he won the Super Bowl and MVP.
Against the Patriots. Yeah.
Yep. And those were the, we were able to hit those access points at the right time. And and that really, as we were talking earlier about positive mental attitude, I think that your belief changes with your experience, as opposed to you trying to manipulate what you believe, right? So after we did those high-profile gigs and continued to do high-profile gigs, playing with Diana Ross and Lionel Richie and having Rod Stewart come up to us and tell us how marvelous that we were and get photos with us. I began then to believe, because of my experience, that we could really do this.
Yeah.
So our confidence came from the experience, not from trying to be positive or pumping ourselves up. We just, show up every Tuesday and rehearse and get better, and the shows get better. And so that's how it just kind of took off gradually. And, we really did change the game in the fact that, when we did Mar-a-Lago, we were the only band that ever came back 2 years in a row, much less 9 years in a row. And the knee-jerk reaction in the fundraiser corporate businesses, you never have the same band 2 years in a row. And we just played a show last week in Charleston that was our 14th year.
Wow.
For the same client. Because the show keeps changing.
Yeah.
And the band keeps getting better.
Constantly improving. Do you have vision? Do you find inspiration? Because one of the things that I'm seeing as a theme here is your guys are trailblazers. Because a lot of times you can look at something and say, I'm inspired by that, I'll emulate it. There wasn't anyone to emulate in this situation. You were the only one. You were the top dog and the leader of the pack. Would you say that is a vision that you have, or you're inspired by something that you want to get towards?
Well, I find I get ideas from all over the place. I'm a really big theater guy. I love to go to New York. My wife and I go to New York often. We go to plays. I make it, and I made a pact with myself probably 10 or 12 years ago that I was going to see all the greats. So when Rod Stewart was in town, I was there. When the Rolling Stones were in town, I was there. So I'm constantly learning from these guys. And, Party on the Moon now is progressed to the point where we're almost like I've learned so much from Broadway and so much about structure as an artist that watching a Party on the Moon performance is almost like a dance party theater experience, because there's people on and off stage, there's costume changes, there's contrasting things with the way that we're blocking and the way that we do the music, the way the music's put together. So I'm constantly learning from, the Rod Stewarts of the world and the Rolling Stones. I always pick up nuggets, and I go, wow, that's a neat idea. And I'm smart enough. I've learned enough now that I have skill I can go to a concert and see it work and know why it works. Mm-hmm. And I watch music documentaries, and, I'm always learning to, and one of the things that's so great about your life as an artist is you never make it. You never get there. Same way in martial arts. You never, as a Taito karate student, you never get there. And if you think you're there, then just watch Dumont or Mitsaki, and they'll
keep you humble.
Show you pretty quick that they are the masters, and you are not.
Now, in terms of preparation for what you have to do for the show, at the beginning, how long were y'all practicing early on before you started playing for paying clients and events?
I think, we were doing maybe a couple of times a week, and it would be long rehearsals. We were just struggling to kind of put a show together. When you're first putting a band together, you're really just trying to, we played the entire songs, and there were breaks in between this. We'd play a song and then stop, and we'd play a song and stop. And, we were just kind of getting our sea legs, and now it's we've got so much momentum, it's a lot easier. But when we prepare for a show now, we've got a big wedding coming up, and they've got their 3 special dances. So on Tuesday, the first thing we do is, what are the special dances?
Okay.
We'll make sure we got those. which is very quick, and then we'll do abbreviated versions of those. And then we'll make any changes to the show that we feel like that we need to. One of the other things, too, that I think about Party on the Moon that I think is interesting, and I run up against this with other band leaders. And, we've got 7 hours of music. We do a 3-hour show. Sometimes we do 4-hour show. Our longest show was 5.5 hours at Mar-a-Lago.
Straight?
5.5 hours straight. That was a hard show. That was a long show. But most of our shows are 3 hours, and then, maybe there's a dinner set. But we have a show that we know is going to work. Like I was on the phone with a planner and a bride and groom and the mom, and I do a lot of Zoom now work with my clients in the front of, before the event to find out, what kind of music they like and how we want to transition and how are we going to get the bride and groom in and how are we going to get them, I'm really into helping the clients create a seamless event from beginning to end that's going to be memorable. So we know that when we go in that we got a show that's going to kill them. I mean, it's going to kill them. And we don't, and the way we came on that is this was probably 25 years ago, a guy that was doing some production for us, a record producer, had an audience with Clive Davis, right?
Yep.
We did not have an audience. He had an audience with Clive Davis and took a tape that he and I had written to Clive Davis's office, and they had liked it, and he went in. So he's sitting across from Clive Davis, and Clive said, this sounds good. He said, everybody sounds good. He said, the songs are pretty good, not great. Everybody's got good songs, not great songs. And how's the show? And he said, if they're playing clubs, is there a line to get in? Do they get a standing ovation after the show? Do they sell out their shows? Do they sell out in Mobile, Alabama, and New York City? Because if they have a show that works, it'll work anywhere in the world. And if you don't believe it, just go see Aretha Franklin. And if the band doesn't have a show, then I'm not interested in the band. Of course, we didn't have the show. And that was our big brush with stardom with Clive Davis. And I really took that to heart and have built with Party on the Moon and all of our bands, that I manage and work with. All of our bands have shows that we know we're going to get people on the dance floor immediately. There are going to be one or two reactions when the band starts. And you've seen the band. They're going to either be stunned and they're going to sit in their seat and go, what is happening here? Or they're going to run to the dance floor and they're going to stay there for 3 hours and be out of their mind.
Yeah.
And so we know the show's going to work. We do not read the audience. And I had a planner on this same call, and she asked the bride and groom, she said, why don't you tell Dennis what kind of music that you like? But also, they're really good at reading the audience. And I said, wait a minute, we don't read the audience. When you go to see Hamilton on Broadway, they don't walk out on the stage and look out and go, we've got a mainly African-American audience tonight, so we're going to change the script. They don't do that.
Yeah.
And we don't do that either. We know that we've got a show that's going to kill you. That doesn't mean that we may not massage it. But we don't read the audience. That's the craziest thing I ever heard of. But that's the way that a lot of bands do it.
Yeah.
And there's no way that you could have a show that way because you've got to set your show up in such a way that you can have costume changes and you can have blocking and you can have different things going on in the show that makes it feel more like theater than a show band.
That puts into perspective why it felt so different, that it being a theater production. How do you guys, other than, I guess, obviously you're practicing, how do you guys stay in shape and maintain that level of enthusiasm for that long of a period?
It's self-generating. because what we're doing is creating a performance. And I'm sure you've had this experience where you'll be, doing an interview, or you'll be editing, or you'll be writing, or you'll look at your watch and go, holy cow, 4 hours went by.
Yeah.
Because you've been immersed in the creative process.
I see.
And the creative process is life-giving. So, and this is very common with a lot of artists. When they get through with their performance, they've got more energy when they finish than they did when they started. So we may show up to the show and you may not feel that well, but as soon as the music starts, and then at the end of the show, somebody that may have had a cold feels better.
What are some of your most memorable performances, which is a tough question to ask as you've done so many, or some that just stick out to you?
I think they all probably do. I can tell you some memorable moments that kind of turned my head. We did Barack Obama's inaugural ball, the first one. And of course, everybody was abuzz in D.C. And the way those inaugural balls work is, of course, they don't know who's going to be elected. So you can't get booked months in advance because you don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
So we get the call like 10 days before the gig.
What?
And the only way we were able to do the gig is we had our own tour bus, because all of the hotels were sold out. All the flights were sold out. So we,
just drove there, yeah.
So we get the gig, and we go to the inaugural ball, and we show up in the ballroom, and it's in the convention center in D.C., which is like its own city. I mean, it's many, many blocks long, this convention center, with ballrooms and everywhere. It's just absolutely massive. So we go set up, and we go into the ballroom, and we look, and there's there's our stage and a dance floor, and then there's another band set up, and they've got 2 drummers and a Latin percussion thing and 5 or 6 horn players, and it looks like it could be 25 pieces. We have no idea who it is. There's no name on the drum or anything, and there's nobody there. We don't know who it is, and what we're going to do is we're going to play, then they're going to play, and then we're going to play, and then they're going to play, which, we do that now is pretty standard, but this is really the first time that we've done it.
Yeah.
So we get through setting up, and then the planner comes over, right? And it's Jennifer Lopez and Mark Anthony.
What?
So it hits me that Barack Obama's going to be there, right? And he comes in and dances to At Last with his wife. And what he does is he goes to the different parties in the convention center. But that was really memorable, that we're 50 feet from Jennifer Lopez and her husband, and which was, and she was just like an angel, when she walked on stage, and they were just phenomenal. And then while they're playing, I decided that I would go to the next ballroom, and I walk in to that ballroom, and it's Stevie Wonder,
oh my gosh,
with Sting and David Letterman's band, Paul Schaefer's band. I go one more ballroom down, and it's Bon Jovi. And I don't know who else was playing because I ran out of time.
Yeah.
But that was memorable in the fact of, I kind of went, for a guy that's lazy, low self-esteem, a bad speller, didn't go to college, I've done pretty fucking well for myself. I'm here with all these stars. It's great.
You sure have, Dennis. You sure fucking have. And you should be proud of that. I know I am. That's incredible. One of the things I'm also curious about is, how do you balance and manage all the personalities? 13 people in a band. And can you also share the 3 requirements when you were bringing people onto the team about kindness and commitment, and how that was kind of your guiding process for bringing people on, and then how do you balance people?
It's so simple. It's so simple. When I put the band together, and I still use this criteria with everybody I work with, I wanted nice people, talented people, and people that want to be part of something special. Mm. If you're just looking for a gig, I'm not interested. If you're an ass, I'm not interested. And in the early days, of the bands that I was in before Party on the Moon, I was the number one thing I was concerned about was talent. Who was the most talented?
Yeah.
And many times the people that are the most talented can be the people that are the most challenging to be part of. So I'd much rather have people that are less talented, even though everybody in the band is talented, because you can grow that skill.
Yeah.
But it's very easy. We don't have a drama. The average person in Party on the Moon, I think I looked at it a couple of months ago. I think the average person in Party on the Moon stays for like 10 years. So,
oh my gosh.
Look at we got the best gig in the country. I'm a nice guy. They get paid well. We play the best gigs and people, sometimes it's time for people to leave, and they, may start families or their kids get up enough old enough that they need to be there, or, somebody's wife or husband gets transferred. But I think I've let three people go in the 20 years of Party on the Moon.
Wow.
Where it just, came to a point where I think it would be, we don't have a match now.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
So the work you do in the front end of pre-qualifying sets it up for success to have personalities gel together correctly.
Yeah, and it's, and the band is not a democracy. I love ideas, and it's very much a collaborative thing. But, we don't have band meetings. There's no reason to have a band meeting. If you want to talk about something, just let me know.
Yeah.
And but I have one of my clients out of Philadelphia I was talking to a couple of months ago, and she said, well, how do you run your band meetings? I said, well, we don't have band meetings. And it never occurred to her that, why would you need to have band meetings if it's your band? There was
Now, speaking of clients, I'm going to assume a lot of business is repeat and referrals.
Most of our business comes from either people have seen us or they've heard about us. But, we've gotten, number one wedding band for Martha Stewart and Vogue magazine and Modern Bride magazine. We were voted Entertainers of the Year by Entertainment Weekly magazine. And, we do get new clients, but, we can only do a certain amount of dates per year, which is really was the organic process for starting the management company, because originally it was Party on the Moon, and then my then partner, Ed Duncan, and I were turning down work because, once we book New Year's Eve, then we're booked. Mm-hmm. And what a lot of groups do, not all groups, but it's very popular in New York and LA, and it's becoming even more popular now in Atlanta and Nashville, is they will have a band name, and then they will have two or three different versions of that same band name play on the same night. So It's almost like a franchise kind of a thing. So I was really faced with this question when we started turning work away. Was I going to duplicate Party on the Moon or not? And it was really a kind of a business. Did we want to do that? And I decided that I did not want to do that because I wanted to keep the quality of the band up. So that's when we started working with other groups and bringing them in and training them and teaching them the same values and molds of Party on the Moon. So all of our bands, Jesse's Girls and Simply Irresistible and Big Swing, all of those bands rehearse every Tuesday. They do a nonstop show. They're highly choreographed. They're easy to work with. So
you guys have a structure of how you approach the gigs. And so are these people, so these additional bands, how many are there total?
Yeah, there's 6. Yeah.
Including Party of the Moon or 6?
Yes.
Okay, so 6. Are you guys finding those bands and saying, hey, let us teach you about this structure and how to grow?
It works several ways. It works both ways. In some cases, the band leaders hear about us and come to us. And, what I've learned, and of course I learned this from Ed, was if you got a strong band leader, you're going to be fine.
I see.
So my interaction is really more with the band leader, and then I consult them on how to, do what we do. But and that's been great. I mean, I'm very proud that that our groups are, Party on the Moon is the most successful band in America, maybe the world, in what we do. And we've got 3 of our bands that are in the top 5 bands in America at what they do.
What can you describe to us, for the average person, what does a weekend look like when you're playing a show? Is it, let's say it's out of town somewhere in another state out of Georgia. Is it a Saturday one? You guys leave Friday?
I'll tell you, I'll share with you last weekend.
Yeah.
We played in Charleston last weekend. We played Friday night. I think we left at 4:00 in the morning, Friday morning.
Okay.
We meet at the tour bus. We get on the tour bus. We go to sleep. We've got a professional driver that all he does is drive. And we showed up at Charleston, and then that was kind of a late setup. I think we set up at 4:00 or something, and did it. That takes about 2 hours. Then we get a shower and maybe nap for an hour, and then we do a 3-hour show. Then we took a shower, got on the bus, and went to Fairhope, Alabama, which is near Mobile.
Okay.
For a wedding. We arrived there drove overnight. We slept, drove overnight. I think we arrived there about 10:30. Then we set up, sound checked, and then by 1:00, we went to the hotel, got shuttled to the hotel, stayed there till 6:00, got shuttled back, played the show, packed up our gear, went to the hotel, took a shower, and we were home at 5 a.m. Sunday morning.
48 hours.
Yeah.
2 shows played, 2 different states. You guys are decades of experience into it. Are you exhausted by then? Are you drained?
Well, it's a little, traveling in a bus like that that's why the rock stars travel like that. So they can, they're not spending time in a hotel or spending time on flights. So, the quality of life is as good as, any rock star in the business.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work. It's intense work because for those, as soon as I get on that bus, then I'm on. I'm dialed in.
Yeah.
Until I get off that bus.
You're working. You're focused. One of the things that you wrote in the book was, when people ask what line of work I'm in, I told them I'm in the memory making business. Expound upon that for me.
Yeah. You have a wedding, right? And I think, and weddings are one of my most favorite things to do. We do a lot of really cool shows. We just played a show recently in New Orleans with Maroon 5 and Diana Ross. Great show. A lot of fun. Tens of thousands of people. It was great.
Yep.
But when you do these weddings, it's many times a once in a lifetime thing, and they're going to have that forever. So what I dial into, it's one thing to say we're in the memory making business, because we are, but I think one of the things that we're really, really great at is you do that by making specific moments that are memories, like leading the bride and groom in with a drum line, or getting the bride and groom up to do the final bow with the band. Or, we did a show when I was consulting a client recently. I was asking them if there was anybody just happened to come up in the conversation, if there was anyone in the family that was a singer. And sure enough, Uncle Bob used to sing in a college band. Yeah. I said, great, why don't we get Bob up to sing with a band? They were blown away. You would really have Bob up to sing with? I said, not only would I want him up, he should be up.
Yeah.
Because the party is really about the client. It's not about the band.
Mm.
We're servants of the event, not the stars of the event. And so we picked out the song that that Bob was going to play. We rehearsed it, recorded it on the phone, emailed it to Bob, and he just absolutely nailed it. And people went out of their mind. They just went out of their mind. That's what I meant about specific moments, right, in the show. And then we work very closely with planners to make sure that we're in tandem with them to make sure that there's no downtime. Everything is seamless, and from the toast to the introductions to making sure we got the names of the bride and groom correct. Mm-hmm. And I just really, and especially now, we went through 2 years of not being able to celebrate.
COVID. Yeah.
And I mean, we were on lockdown for 20 months for the most part. And so, as a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, we did our last makeup wedding that they should have had 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people I think we took celebrations for granted.
Yeah.
I know I did. And so now when people come to events, they are ready. If I get invited to your party, I'm coming. Somebody gets invited to Uncle Bob's wedding, they're coming. So we're seeing a level of just appreciation and gratitude in events that is just wonderful. And it's just great to be part of that as an artist. And now people's, now people are far more dialed into entertainment than they were 20 years ago. I mean, we all came up with music, and we're not gonna have a band that's not great. So it's just been. But to your point, and one of the things that we do, one of the orientations that I moved into, and I think you and I may have touched on this at some point, is about maybe 10 years ago. A lot of musicians, I know I did, especially in my early days, think that the audience is not that smart. We as business owners sometimes can think that we know more than our clients know, right? And you'll get these things, I've written and recorded and produced over 200 original songs. So there was a time in my life that I went, the public just doesn't get me, because if they did, they would be buying my friggin' records, not Michael Jackson's records, because they just don't get me. They're not that smart. And a lot of musicians feel that way, and a lot of artists feel that way. And so they got this attitude, and business people too, right? Mm-hmm. That if the audience knew, or the clients knew, or the customers knew, they would come to me.
Yeah.
And I started toying with this idea. I said, well, what if the audience, instead of being ignorant, what if they were geniuses? And I just began to think about that. And I said, well, if they were geniuses, then what would we do? And then I started I really started pushing the envelope with the music a lot more. So a Party on the Moon rehearsal will be 30 minutes learning the special dances. And then we got an hour and a half to do whatever we want. So we started taking these transitions between the songs and really turning those into a piece of art, a work of art, as opposed to a bunch of songs thrown together. And we began to do things like mash up Pink Floyd and Michael Jackson, or mash up the Bee Gees and AC/DC, where we're playing two songs at once. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, people will come up to me after a 3-hour show and go, I think it's just awesome that you guys played the introduction to Tom Sawyer before you went into a Bee Gees song. It was only 4 bars that we played.
Yeah.
But they got it. And what I've realized over the years is that when a band is really great and they really take a lot of time and effort to make sure that what they do is great, whether it's choreography or costumes, or they may not be able to put their finger on it, but they have a sense of there's something great going on here.
Yeah,
and it's made all the difference in my approach to the way that I look at my audience, and the way that we structure our show, and the way that I run my business, because as a collective, I think that audiences are really smart.
I think they are too. And it goes back to the memories you're talking about, those moments that happen that people remember. Have you seen the Disney movie Inside Out, about the emotions
Yes.
that stick with people? That movie had a profound impact on my life, because I think they visually captured something we all feel, which is a core memory, good or bad. That core memory, it's gold, and it goes into a separate part, and you remember that forever. And the 4-bar riff, that probably meant something deeper to him than even you guys realize. It could be connected to something else.
Sure, yeah.
And those moments, they stick with people forever. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I've had people just come up and go, I love the band. I love your transitions. That's all. That's all they said. I love your transitions. And I think of our set as a work of art as opposed to just a set list. And it changed our whole thing. So we're doing things that and all of our bands do. All of the bands that work with me, are really pushing those boundaries. And that becomes part of that memory thing.
A few minutes ago, you said the word servant. We're servants. And I had a question from earlier, actually. You made a career celebrating other people and performing for others, when a lot of times, and I don't say this in a negative way, but people making music, they want people to know their music. They want to be famous. But you kind of pivoted on that. Was that servant leadership, the humility, was that a conscious decision? Did that just stem out of action? I'm curious about that.
Well, it stemmed out of reality, because people hire me to show up and do a job.
Mm-hmm.
And they hire me to show up and create an event for them that's going to be, the best event that they've ever been to. Yeah, I mean, we are servants, and I think it really is about service. Even when we're doing original material, or we're writing books, or we're making movies, and it's nothing that the religious leaders and mystics haven't said. I mean, it's all about service to me.
Yeah.
And my job as a band leader is to find out who is the hero and to celebrate that hero.
Mm.
And that hero we just did a show for recently of Jersey Mike's subs. And before I do a show with a client, especially if it's a corporate client, I find out everything I can about that client. Mm-hmm. So I'll spend time online. When did they start? How many employees they got? What are the high points? What are the things they've done? Are they involved in their community? So we did this show for Jersey Mike's. It was 2 guys. And I bring them up on stage at the end of the night, which is the hero moment of the night.
Yeah.
Just like bringing the bride and groom up. Who are the heroes? I bring the 2 guys up and I sit them down and I tell the audience their story. That these 2 guys built this company.
Wow.
40 years ago, and you guys have now got 200 franchises, and we got 600 people here, and you guys are raising your families because of this. They've given hundreds of thousands of dollars to these nonprofit to make their communities better. And it just blew them away, because what it did was it really united people around why we were there, as opposed to me introducing the friggin' band. Who cares?
I see.
Who cares who the drummer is? Who's the hero? And in the history of Party on the Moon, I've only done one show that we did, which was a show that we did in Charlotte called Stories and Songs with Party on the Moon, which is about our story that I introduced the band. Mm-hmm. It's all about the hero. Who is that hero? And audiences respond to that because it's true. They're not coming to see Party on the Moon. They may be coming to Party on the Moon, but the driving force behind us being there is we're there to celebrate something. What is that? And how can we lift that up?
That makes so much sense, Dennis. This is a crash course for me in business and serving clients. Another thing I'm curious about is, obviously you guys have had a tremendous amount of success. And I can imagine there have been mistakes and roadblocks over the way, or even a failure. What comes to your mind when I say that? Is there any story you can share of something that went wrong?
Yeah. I mean, we've been very fortunate, I think, that we have not had a lot of bumps in the road. But I will tell you I will tell you one of the bumps in the road that, we take it so serious that when I get on that bus and lay my head down, I want to feel that I've really done a good job.
Mm-hmm.
We're in Washington, D.C. We're playing the Fairmont Hotel.
Okay.
Bride and groom, both lawyers, high-powered lawyers in their 30s, right? Friends of Eli Manning's,
Okay.
Giants fans. And so we're doing the first dance. We got the bride and groom, mother, son, yada, yada. We're doing the first dance. And I see that the bride and groom do not look happy. I'm just sensing they're not, something is afoul here. Finish the bride and groom song. Father-daughter song, same thing. Now, the bride's face is turning to anger. I'm sensing now anger.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, what is going on here? Then we do the mother-son dance. And the groom, I'm sensing just anger is coming off him. So I had no idea what was going on. So the third dance gets done, which is only a matter of 3 or 4 minutes. The planner's on the side of the stage with her wiggling her finger at me. And I go over to the side of the stage. She said, "The bride and groom would like to have a word with you now." Now the band's playing.
Yeah.
The audience is now dancing. So I put my guitar down and I follow the planner. And we go into, it felt like I was marching into a dungeon for crucifixion.
Oh, gosh.
And it seemed like we walked forever through the bowels of the Fairmont Hotel in Washington, D.C., with the bride and groom stomping behind me.
In the middle of their wedding.
While their wedding is going on.
Yeah.
So we keep walking. Finally, we go into a room. We go into the room. The groom slams the door behind him, and we're in like a storeroom with a bunch of boxes and stuff. And the bride and groom proceed to scream at me. And what we had done was we had played the bride and groom song had gotten mixed up with the father-daughter song. So instead of playing, we had them flipped.
Oh, no.
Right. And it was the most unbelievable. I mean, they were in my face. They were screaming, you guys, brought you guys down here because you guys are, supposed to be the best in the world. We're going to ruin you guys, you piece of crap, And I was a martial artist at the time, and it was the only time that I had ever thought, I'm going to have to, somebody's going to get hit.
Yeah. Somebody's
going to get hurt. And all I could do was just say that we screwed this up. I'm sorry, we screwed it up. And the way the songs were, either one of them could have worked. You know what I mean? The audience didn't know that they were the wrong songs, but the bride and groom knew.
Yeah.
We ended up giving the client their money back.
Oh, wow. Over just that?
Yep, over just that. And when I look back on it, to have that be something that I remember now, right, is a failure and a disappointment, shows you how serious we are about what we do.
Yeah.
But, and it affected the whole band. I mean, we didn't, nobody slept, and we were, because we were so disappointed that we disappointed them.
Yeah. But you're right, though. That's in the grand scheme of things. It is a mistake. Also, I mean, couldn't the wedding planner have just said something in the moment? Did said like the second the song starts, they could have just told you guys that. But how were you able to go back and keep playing the rest of the night? That had to. I mean,
it was nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
because they had tainted by then the whole experience. That was the tough one. But and what I learned from that is we just always double check.
Yeah,
it was simple. I mean, but we always double check that stuff now. But that was probably one of our most memorable lashings that we've gotten. And they ended up not suing us, and they didn't ruin the band forever. But that won't happen again. I'll tell you.
Hard learning lesson. Now, transitioning a little bit outside of Party on the Moon and more about business and entrepreneurship. In the research, I didn't think about COVID being such a big roadblock for you guys. What did you do when that happened?
Well, there wasn't, from the band side, there wasn't a lot we could do. But, the good news was I've been working on this Christmas play called Elma and the Top for the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's got 26 original songs in it, which I co-wrote with Robert Fritz, who wrote the story. So during COVID, I've got a studio in my home. And so during COVID, I did the majority of the recording of those 26 songs for play. So that was one way that, and I was able to compensate some of the band members for coming over and helping out. So we kind of got through it that way. But it just really shook our industry. And, planners and florists and production guys, a lot of bands went out of business, a lot of production people, event planners, and we still haven't. We're just now beginning to get our sea legs back, but now it's and now you can't get help. It's really turned around that much.
When you say you can't get help, meaning?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get production now. It's harder for event planners to get help. It's hard for caterers to get, it's just trickled down.
So for the people, and I want to dive more in the business side for these questions so 13-piece band, are these people on a salary or are they paid per thing they play?
Everybody's independent contractors.
Okay.
And then, some people have other part-time things they do or full-time things, and they do, teaching or session work or, they're pretty resourceful group.
Yeah, so working through that. And then when did you guys get to start playing again? When was it opening back up for you?
I'm not good at remembering the month, but it's been, a year, maybe a year and a half. We've started coming back, and now next year looks great. 2024 is looking great. And it's looking that way throughout the industry. Yeah.
Everything's coming back up.
Yeah.
When you think back on, because I know that you were in the red first starting the business, spending more than you're making, maxing out credit cards, taking out loans. Was there ever a time where you really considered closing up shop?
No. It was working.
You were going to figure it out no matter what.
Yeah, it was a good idea, and it was working. And one of the things that we develop as creators is, not only do we develop our skills over time, and you're a businessman too, but you develop your instincts over time.
Yeah.
Too.
I found trusting your gut can go a long way. When you have the instincts, you have the gut. And then when you add the experience onto trusting your gut, then you have data that you're pulling, that you're making decisions based off of.
Sure, yeah.
So
absolutely.
You're going from that front. How do you do you have accountability for decision making? Do you have a group that you look to for guidance, mentorship? Are you involved in education? How do you, hold yourself accountable as the leader and owner?
I mean, it's really kind of simple. And I learned this from my grandparents. If you say you're going to do something, just do that. Make sure your checks are good. Treat people the way you'd want to be treated. Just be a good guy. And, the entertainment industry is really a small community. Word gets out. If you do a good job, word gets out. If you don't do a good job, word gets out.
Yeah.
And I'm really fortunate. I've got a good group of people around me. If I need advice from somebody in the band, from time to time, I'll go to somebody and say, "This is what I'm thinking about. What do you think?" Sometimes I go to them. I mean, when I went to the band and said, "We're going to do nonstop 3 hours," I mean, they just went, "This is crazy. This is never going to work. Nobody does this." Then when I went to them and said, "We're going to be the first band ever to play 100 songs in a show," they went, "This is not going to happen. We're going to do a documentary movie." Okay, sure. And then the same, I didn't get. And now when I say, we're going to do a play, we're going to write 26 songs. It's they just go, okay.
They know now if Dennis says it, we're going to figure it out and we're going to do it.
We'll try to, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what's he going to do? What's he going to do next? And not that other people don't have ideas, because they do, but, there's not, and not being in a democracy, which when I was before I started Party on the Moon, everything was a democracy, and which made it absolutely impossible to get anything done.
Yeah.
So I don't do democracies, I don't do committees, and I don't do band meetings. So there you go.
There you go. That's a good answer to the question. It makes sense. When we were talking before the interview, you had mentioned talking about looking for a match instead of a sale. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. In the industry that I'm in the party band, event band industry, what agents and planners and bands are looking for is a sale, right? They're looking for a sale. And where I have moved to is I'm moving to looking for a match instead of a sale, and allowing the sale to come out of a match. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Does my offer match what the client needs? Mm. Or does it match what the client wants? Because the client may not get what they need, but they want what they want. Mm-hmm. And the way that I've been doing that in real time is getting on Zoom calls, and sometimes I do it in real time with clients, where I fly to meet clients, but I like to spend time talking with them about what it is they're trying to create. And my process of doing that is when they're telling me about that event, then I'm picturing that in my mind as a movie. And if there's part of that movie that doesn't make sense, then I can stop them.
I see.
Till it makes sense. And I have got an enormous amount of resources. We have a show that we created called The Greatest Show in the Galaxy. And that show is, violins, aerialists, extra horn players, pyrotechnics, dancers. So with my resources, once I get with a client, once I can meet with a client, then we can find out whether or not what we have to offer is a good fit for them. And the thing I like about looking for a match is it takes the manipulation out of the transaction. Mm. So it's like you and I having a beer talking about your event. What are you seeing? This is my resources that I have. This is the way we could do it, given my experience of doing events.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've done over 1,000 weddings, and I know what works, how to do these things. So, given that, do we have a match to do business, and then the sale? Then, if we've got a match, then we've got a basis to do business, and if we don't have a match, then maybe we'll have a match next time, or maybe I can help you find a match.
Yeah.
Right. So So the sale part is secondary to finding a match. And the reason I like this so much is I'm not trying to get the client to do anything. We're just seeing if we have a match, right? So there's nothing up my sleeve. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just want to see if there's a match there. So it really gives us fertile ground to create a relationship. And we create a relationship based around what it is that you care about, which is this event, which I also care about, right? So you're really, I mean, not to sound corny, but it's really fertile ground to create a relationship that's based in love as opposed to opportunity, and based in value as opposed to opportunity. And then if there's a match there, then we can talk about how much it is. And then either you can afford it or you can't. And you being able to afford it is part of the match.
Yeah.
So if you can't afford it, then I'll help you find a match that you can afford.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, people that call us, because we are a high-end product, most of those people, if they see the values there and they see there's a match, it's like they want the Lamborghini, not the Corolla. But the knee-jerk reaction of trying to make a sale is, let's just try to make the sale as fast as we can, and maybe it's a match and maybe it's not. And let me also say, in defense of people who sell, who are transactional in their selling, which most agents are, that there's a real demand for you to call and say, I need a $5,000 band. Great, here's 3 $5,000 bands, pick one, as opposed to, I've got an event, right, and I consult with you. Where is it? How many? We just booked a show. We're working on a show for next Memorial Day that's going to be a 4-day event.
Whoa.
And they're having it on a ranch, and we're going to do the reception party that's going to be a karaoke party around a piano with singers. Then we're going to do the reception. We're going to do the ceremony. Then we're going to do the rodeo party, and we're going to do 2 hours of authentic country music, and we're bringing in one of the top steel guitar players in the country and playing Johnny Cash and George Strait. And I was able to help them create that event all through that Zoom call. So they were able to come to us and get all of this entertainment instead of having to get 4 or 5 different. Mm-hmm. And one of them is an after party with a DJ who also is the singer in our band. So it ends up being 5 elements for the same client. That would have never happened if I was just going for the sale. But once they began to talk me through the event, oh, well, we can do that. Okay, well, we'll bring the violin section from Vegas in. Oh, we'll bring the steel guitar player from Nashville, or we'll bring...
I see. So you're providing astronomical value because it sounds like you're thinking of this event as your own event, and you guys have heavy influence on what goes on.
Yeah, well, I mean, what it is I've become a collaborator in the client's creative process. I mean, that's really what it is. Let's collaborate on this together.
Yeah.
Because I have a skill set that can really help you. And if I can't help you, then it's in my best interest and yours to let you know that.
That's a perfect segue to talk about the creative process. And, well, actually, there's a quote that you put in the book I wanted you to speak on. But first, because you've talked to me in depth on our breakfasts that we've had and lunches, you've really expressed the creative process to me. What does that mean to you, and why is it different than what the average person might think of the words creative process?
Well, 30 years ago, I discovered the work of Robert Fritz. And he had a groundbreaking book at the time called The Path of Least Resistance, which was all around the skill of the skill of the creative process. And the skill, there wasn't at that time a lot known about how do creators create. And it was really a talking shop of how does that work from a structural standpoint of view.
Yeah.
And to quote Robert's work, I'm quoting his work now. When you set up, when you have a current reality, when you're in touch with current reality, and you have a vision of something you want to create, it automatically, just by that dynamic, just by those two factors, dynamics sets up attention, right? And it's a dynamic that it's not a belief, but it's actually a structural dynamic between what it is you want and where you want to be, and whatever it is. We talked about it: your weight, a black belt, a movie, whatever that is. And that tension seeks resolution. That's in physics. That's not in our mind. Tension seeks resolution. So if there's a tension between where you want to go and where you are, and the farther you are away, then the more tension is set up, which is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. So what I learned from Robert Fritz was how to manage that dynamic. And we manage that dynamic by making primary choices. And a primary choice would be, an example of a primary choice for me is I want to have radiant health. I want to have good health. I want to live as long as I can, as healthy as I can. That's my goal. And I've made secondary choices to support that. So I do Pilates 3 or 4 days a week. I do Taito 2 days a week. And I just try to take care of myself.
Yep.
Right. And so his work really changed my life in the fact that I saw the creative process as a skill, not a mindset. Right. So I went on to do his work, and then I went on to teach his work, to teach the creative process. And as I said, one of the things I like to quote when I quote Robert is, in the creating business, you leave you're better off to leave your beliefs at the door in the creating business, because I'm in the creating business, not the belief business. And I still do that, use that same concept today as, what is it you want to do? Where are you in relationship to getting there? And there's 2 ways that tension's going to resolve itself. Remember, we've got a tension here. Almost imagine a rubber band.
Yep.
What I want, where I am, I've got a tension there. And it wants to resolve itself automatically because it's inherent in the structure. It's going to resolve itself in 1 or 2 ways. Either current reality is going to become your vision, or you're going to lower your vision. Right. And there's 1 or 2 ways that people do that. A, they can lie to themselves about current reality, which happens a lot, or they can lower their vision. But if you can hold fast to those over time, then the chances are, if you take the secondary steps, that the creative process will lead you toward your vision, because current reality will change in relation to the secondary choices that you've made.
Yeah.
So it's really, and there's a lot of things about it that I love, but I love the fact that you can be involved in the creative process in your own life, regardless of what you think of yourself, and regardless of whether you're positive or whether or not you're inspired. It has nothing to do with any of that.
One of the things that you also mentioned in the book was momentum in the creative process. And I think there's a chapter on momentum. Can you speak a little more on momentum?
Yeah, it's very, it seems like such a simple thing, but it's really profound in the creative process. I mean, we know momentum is basically, it's easier to once something's rolling, it's easier to keep it rolling than it is if it's stopped and you're trying to get it rolling.
Yeah.
Right. So in the creative process, one of the things that we would do with our students in the creative process is I would turn to you and I would say, Jordan, pick 10 things on your list that you want to create. Okay. Right. And make some of them small things. I want to clean my office. That might be one of your choices. Or I'm going to, they don't have to be big things. And the reason that's important is because you want to develop momentum to help you in the other areas. So when I go into band rehearsal, and sometimes, we did a country show in Jackson Hole, same kind of thing we're going to do next year in Colorado. And we got 2 hours of country music to learn. 2 hours of country music to learn. I've never played Merle Haggard music. And I love all that stuff. So when I go into band rehearsal, my main thing that I'm looking for is let's do the easiest stuff first. Now, why is that important? So I can get momentum going within the band rehearsal, right? When we're working on songs, or when we're working on rehearsals, or when we're setting up a video shoot, you want to get the thing going first.
Yeah.
And once you get going, and these are things now that I do unconsciously, right? Subconsciously. So if we've got 3 songs to learn for the wedding, I always pick the one that either we've done or the one that I know that's going to be the easiest, because once we get it going, and then the whole band just kind of falls into that whole piece. And the way we would use it in real time would be, you want to buy a new car. Well, go online and look at something, or go to the car dealership and drive a couple.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like such a simple thing, but so many, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier. So I think we live now where we have to fix ourselves or find ourselves before we can take any action. We've got to be okay before we take any action. And what we think about ourselves has nothing to do with what it is that we want to create. Like, I have very low self-esteem. I've always had low self-esteem. Yeah. It's part of my makeup. I'm okay with that. But if I was trying to fix my low self-esteem, the only thing I would do would be ingrain it more in me.
So even though you have the low self-esteem, when in doubt, create.
Who cares? And if you read, and one of my favorite things is to read autobiographies. And if you read Bruce Springsteen, go down the line, Martin Luther King, Abraham Lincoln, Mother Teresa, who of those had high self-esteem? None.
I think people need to hear this, Dennis, because you don't carry yourself like you have low self-esteem.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. But you keep going.
Who cares?
You keep going anyways. Now that we're talking about the creative process and Robert Fritz, I'd love, because I know we're coming up on time, I'd love to talk about the Christmas play. And if you could tell me, Elma and the Top, is that correct?
Elma on the Top.
Elma on the Top. Tell me about it. Where did it come from? Is it going to come out this Christmas?
It's coming out this Christmas, and I'll tell you the story of it. Robert Fritz, I started his work 30 years ago and have been doing his work ever since. He's a world-renowned. I would highly encourage you to go to robertfritz.com. He just went to Japan and released 2 books in Japan. He's got on the bestseller list. He, as a matter of fact, when he was in Japan, he just shot a movie. He's an award-winning film director, playwright, composer. Robert is one of those guys that makes everybody else look bad by how much he does. I'm not kidding you.
And he made your guys' documentary too?
Yes.
Directed? Yeah.
Yep. He wrote it and directed it. So 4 years ago, I just happened to be chatting with Robert and said, I've always wanted to do a Christmas musical, and I want it to be aimed at kids with adult content. And when I say that, it's like It's a Wonderful Life is a great movie for the family, but it really has some powerful messages in that movie.
Yeah.
So does The Wizard of Oz, and so does A Christmas Carol, right? And he said, well, as a matter of fact, I have a Christmas story that I wrote many years ago, 30 years ago, that became a Christmas book and a audio book. And he said, I can just take the script and alter it, and we'll turn it into a musical. Great. So I spent 2 days in Vermont. He came to Atlanta for 2 days, and we wrote over 50 songs.
Wow.
In 10 hours, 12 hours. It was like amazing. Now, Robert taught composition at the Boston Conservatory. So he's a learned musician. I don't read music. So you got a guy that's a composer.
Hold on, you don't read music?
Pardon me? I don't read music.
How do you play?
I learn by ear.
Damn. I didn't know that.
And so you got this combination of a rock musician that doesn't read music and a guy that's a world-class composer. And so it was magical, and we were writing songs like mad, and we wrote 20. We ended up with 26 songs for the play. And it is going to be at the Seven Stages Theater, December 5th through the 9th. It's going to be a cast of 14. And I am really excited about it. And the content of it is the story of Elma and the top. And Elma's the smallest elf at the North Pole, trying to find her way. And Elma's life has been relegated to turning on the lights and heat in the morning, turning them off at night, and staying out of the way of the other elves. And one of the scenes, Santa says, anybody got anything Elma can do? Their response is, have her stay out of the way. Mm. She does nothing but get in the way. Mm. So that's the story of Elma. And what Elma really comes home to herself at the end of the play. And what she learns is that she can make a difference in the world, regardless of what she thinks of herself, because she does not have high self-esteem, and she does not feel like she has much value because she's so small. And the very first song of the show is Show Up, Do the Work, Never Give Up. And she learns that she can show up and do the work and be of value regardless of what she thinks of herself and regardless of whether she's positive or not. And the top, who's the other character, is taken to the North Pole by Santa. Santa finds him in a toy store, finds her in a toy store and says, you want to go to the North Pole? The top wants to go to the North Pole. And the top starts whining because he's not happy at the North Pole. So the elves call Santa over and says, we got a problem with the top. So Santa goes and talks to the top. What's going on? He said, I just nobody spins me. I'm just tired of sitting over here. Nobody spins me. Well, what do you want? Well, you know what? I just want to be able to spin whenever I want to spin. I don't want to have anybody do anything. I just want to be able to spin whenever I want to. I'm paraphrasing it.
Yeah.
So Santa says, fine. So he calls the elves over and they get some magic ribbon and put it on the top. And now the top can just spin whenever it wants, just spinning its ass off. So during the play, you just see that top, that top's just spinning. And then a couple of weeks later, the top falls into a funk. So the elves go to Santa, we got a problem with the top. The top's down in the dumps. So Santa goes back to the top. And what the top realizes at the end of the story is that his joy came from being of service to others.
Wow.
So it's that type of, and I really think that kids need to hear that if there's something you want to do, just show up and do it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, you're fine just like you are, whether you're short or black or disabled, or if there's something you want to do. And the thing about it is, Jordan, is that we as human beings, I said earlier, there's nothing that you have to do, right? When I was talking to my son, I said, there's nothing you got to do. But we as human beings have something inside us, a dynamic urge, and we want to do stuff. You want to do stuff.
Yeah.
I want to do stuff. People want to make a difference in their own lives and sometimes in the lives of others. It's an urge that we have. And that's the great news. And I think it's even better news that we can do that without having to think that we got to be perfect, or we've got to have the right attitude, or we've got to have the right belief. We don't. And I'm not saying that you not to have beliefs, because I have beliefs, right? I would prefer to be positive than negative, right? I would prefer to be inspired, but I really don't like to be inspired, because when I do, I can't sleep. And it's like being on a, revved up, and So given the choice, I'd rather not be inspired. Yeah. I'd rather just show up.
And get some sleep.
So that's the story of Elma and the Top. And I'm really, and it was the same question I asked myself. I said, it's a tremendous investment to do a play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the biggest thing that I've ever done. It's been 4 years in the making, and I'm the executive producer along with Ellen Dalton, putting up all the money for it. And I asked myself, if it wasn't going to be successful, would I still do it? And the answer was, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see if people run from the theater or they love it and it becomes, and my hope would be is that I think it would be a great movie and a great animation and an awesome community theater play.
Yeah. How long is the play itself going to be?
70 minutes.
70 minutes, okay. Hour and 10. So December 5th through 9th at which theater?
7 stages.
Well, I will be there.
I'll send you all the information, and it'll be fun, and it's been really talk about taking your next step before you're ready, and that's another principle from the creative process.
Yeah,
always take the next step right before you feel like you're ready. That's a really good time to. I'm not saying jump off a building, but
yeah. Dennis, you are fearless, but I wonder, do you have fear when you do this stuff, and you just face it head on because you're doing things that you've never done before at a high level with a lot of money on the line, and you just take them right on in the face. And it's like, I'm inspired by it, and I'm just curious, do you have that fear today? And if so...
Oh, you can't tell that I'm scared to death?
No, man, you don't look it. You don't look it.
Jeremy's going, he's scared to death. I see it. The camera guy's going, he's scared.
The camera sees everything.
Here's the thing. You never know if you're going to be able to create something until you create it. I mean, how could it not be?
Yeah.
Am I panicked? Some days I wake up and go, I'm not sure this is a good idea.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I thought about it from a business guys. You're a businessman. And I thought about it this way. I said, my first thing was, this is a lot of money, right? And plays are a lot of money. I mean, I was reading that the typical play to even get to Broadway is about $6.5 million. Just to see if you can get to Broadway, it's about $6.5 million. Now, this is not in that league, but to put on a play with a cast of 14, with 5 weeks of rehearsal and a show, and the theater and the props and the costumes and the scenes and the technical people, it's substantial. And so my first thing was, well, I'll just go to my friends and family, which is how most people do plays. Mm-hmm. Or movies or businesses, as you know, and see if I could raise money. So, it sounded like a good idea. And then when I thought it through, I went, well, it's a non-proven product. So I'm not going to go to Jordan and say, give me 10 grand and I'll, for ever how much of the pie we decide to split up. And when I really thought it through, I went, well, I'm going to do the opposite of that. I'm going to fund the whole thing. And then at the end of the thing, then we'll film it and we'll have a proof of content.
Yep.
And we'll know, because we'll have 5 shows under our belt, what kind of response we get. And then I'll go after investors and go, here we got something, Jordan. Here it is. Mm-hmm. I would really like to do this on a higher level. And not only do I want to do this on a higher level, but I want to do more plays and more movies because we can broaden our reach to share a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to change the world. I just want to share a good thing. And I think Elma on the Top is a good thing.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea, and I'm excited to come watch it. And Dennis, thank you. Thank you for everything you shared today, coming on the show. I'm excited to go back and watch and listen to the interview because I think you gave really excellent creative advice, business advice, and then interpersonal, kind of emotional advice on even if someone doesn't love who they are, to still keep pushing forward. So thank you for being yourself. Thank you for being fearless. And thank you for never letting anything get in the way of you pursuing your dreams.
Thank you so much for having me. And I tried being somebody else, and it was too difficult. So I'm just going to be me. What you see is what you get. So thanks. And keep up the hard work that you guys are doing. This is great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you. Never change. Never change. And I appreciate you, Dennis. And to everybody watching or listening, episode will be coming out soon, December 5th through 9th at which theater?
7 stages.
7 stages. Grab those tickets. If not, I hope you get the lucky chance in your lifetime to experience a Party on the Moon event. It really is life-changing. Other than that, guys, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening and for sharing and supporting us. And we will see you next time on Find Your Edge. Take care.